Lord have mercy. Okay. It's a fucking shit show. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah and it's been a minute. It's been a week or two and I apologize. I got super fixated on a home renovation project and spent every bit of my free time doing that. That would be the revamp of my library space down here slash husband's training space. So I'll do maybe like a video walkthrough film, something. I'll reveal that at a later time. I don't know if I'll do it this video or another video, but it'll be at the end if I give you a quick pan. So this is going to be my weekend review for the past like 2 weeks. Now last week come Wednesday, I had read one book and I had nothing to talk about, so I didn't want to film anything, so I didn't. I worked down here on painting. So I'm going to try to run through all of the novels, novellas that I read in the past 2 weeks. Manga, shit, I've been talking to my family. Manga is going to be in a monthly wrap-up that'll probably go up in like 2 weeks. So just the books that I have read in the past week and then the books I'm currently reading. So, I don't know. I think I was just reading Lute by Jennifer Thorne last time I checked in. I did finish that, and that was okay. So Lute is a story of this woman who is married into a family they're like the caretakers of this island, somewhere in the British Isles. And there is this 7-year tradition that rolls around where there's sacrifices made. And she thought this is a superstition, you know, she doesn't think anything of it. And the 7 years has come up and it's time for it to happen again. And her husband attempts to get her family off the island, but he is unable to get them off the island. The cats have managed to get down here. Uno momento. Okay. He didn't manage to get them off the island, so her and the family have to take part in this big festival event. Think Midsummer. Yeah, think Midsummer. I feel like there's probably other analogies or like alikes that I could make here, but Midsummer is the closest, and I don't watch a lot of other media. This was great in idea for me, but in execution it was lacking. So we don't get a lot of the world around this setting. We just know that there is a war happening. Things are rationed. There are planes flying overhead, boats in the water around the island, but somehow the island is always spared and never actually suffers as far as the war goes very much. Young people serve in the war, but they always come back. Things like that. It's used to illustrate the point that the island has this great gift and is always blessed and taken care of. So we get just that there's a war. There's no great world building. There's no real detail. It kind of feels a little skimpy on that. And ultimately, in the end, the reason or what the festival is used for, besides the gifts, like who they're giving these gifts to, all of that, none of that is explained, which is fine, but I do wish that if it hadn't been explained, we didn't see this. So the main character is a special character, like they always are, and she has these visions of these beings, and we are led to believe that these are the beings that these sacrifices, these gifts are given to provide this blessing to this community. If we were going to see the beings, then I wish we would have been told what was happening a little more. I think it went a step too far into explaining and then stepped back and didn't explain, if that makes sense. I also had a serious problem with the timing of the romance in this. I don't want to get into spoilers, but I don't know if possibly I missed it, but it seemed like she moved to the island. The individual that she ends up falling in love with and ending up with at the end, he hates her. There is this whole kerfuffle, and she's convinced he hates her forever up until the point of the novel, and then suddenly they're in love, and there's very little building there. Also, it seems that she returned on the day of the funeral of his family. So like his family dies and he falls in love with her at the funeral, and like I'm gonna call bullshit. The funeral was for his wife and daughter. I guess I'm spoiling some of this, but it's kind of obvious from the get-go. The funeral is for this man's wife and daughter, and from the way it read, he falls in love with her from there. I don't know. I just had some problems with the way things were explained and laid out, and ultimately it didn't work great. It was maybe 2.75, 3 stars. I don't know that I would recommend it. Tor Nightfire did this. It looks like a YA novel, and I have seen people categorize it that way, but this is most definitely an adult novel. There is a lot of death and gore, sudden death, and death that you know is coming, but is still like on page and abrupt and very vivid. So don't read it if you don't like any of those things. If you want something good horror-wise, look at other titles from Nightfire. They typically publish excellent stuff, but this one was just a miss. The next book I read was also a miss, and that was City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. This was a hot mess that I really disliked. I think I gave it 2 stars, and I was really anticipating this. This is set in a world in which when you dream, there is a risk that you will become your worst nightmare. You can wake up from your dream as that thing. So if you have a nightmare that you are a giant spider, you wake up as a giant spider and go on these rampages. So the main character, whose sister did just that, woke up as a giant spider and then went on this rampage and killed people. She's terrified of this happening. She takes these drugs to prevent it from happening, and she's always just in a fit trying to avoid this fate from falling onto her. She's doing a job for the group that she works for, and she ends up on a boat that explodes, and then she gets wrapped up in this big conspiracy drama that's happening in the city. My main problems with this were the character was unbelievably anxious and insufferable, and like I'm not sure how she functioned. I understand what the author was aiming for in representing like a PTSD sort of situation where she had this intense trauma and she is reacting, and her anxiety is manifesting in these ways and making her do some of these things. But it was too much too far, to the point that it became and felt almost comical, and it was treated as such. It was treated as comical. Had to get up for a second. But at the same time that it was treated as comical, it was then also treated seriously, and there was just a major tone problem, and it made it very hard for me to tolerate and like enjoy this. The other issue that I had with this was the absolute black and white morality of this story, and reading through a few other Goodreads reviews, I feel like this might be a big sticking point for fans of this author. She has written another series that's about serial killers, while in this book she seems to have taken the stance that any kind of objectionable content in fiction, be it portrayed in movies, books, any kind of media, any kind of problematic, troubling, you know, offensive content in those things is bad. It's just hands down bad. And this is, again, I believe coming from a woman who wrote a series about serial killers. There is very on the page sections where she's saying outright with no nuance, which again, I will say I agree with some of this, but I feel like there was no nuance, because there can be nuance in this conversation. She's looking at a poster for a vampire movie and she says, vampires are evil and wrong because they take away the will of their victims. Now there's all kinds of nuance to this. Like, some of the vampires in her world, yes, are that evil. A lot of them are. She's convinced they all are. Some aren't. She comes to find out, and she knows that some maybe not quite as evil, but she still classes them as evil. But this broad general statement is reinforced several times to the extent to where there is no middle ground. And the thing with problematic themes in fiction is that those in real life can be cathartic. They can be an escape. Some people do enjoy those. I mean, to everyone their own, right? but she's taking a very hardline approach to it that was very uncomfortable even for me. I don't read a lot of dark things, and I don't read a lot of very, most of the stuff I read is very standard. I do read older stuff sometimes, and some of the manga and like translated things that I read can be considered problematic or, you know, whatever. But everyone has their thresholds, but her stance seemed to be a hard line of black and white, bad, good, and so much was bad. All of fiction, all this stuff was bad, and it was very off-putting. And I feel like perhaps there was maybe some attempt to talk about that in the text, but it just did not come across and it didn't work. Anyway, I got interrupted again, but basically to say it didn't work. I think it was heavy-handed. I think she took a line that she didn't need to take, and I don't recommend that one either. Okay, I swear, I really hope there's no more interruptions. My battery died. Evidently today is just someone somewhere doesn't want me to film. Okay, so I finished talking about City of Nightmares. The next novel that I read was another arc. City of Nightmares was also an arc. Song of Silver, Flame Like Light by Emily Wen Zhao. I may have said that name wrong, and if I did, I am sorry. This was actually one I really liked. This was the story of a young lady named Lan, who is a member of a group of people who have been, her country has been colonized and taken over by another group of people. And she is one of the surviving members of this race, and she has a symbol branded into her arm that she can see, but seemingly no one else can. She meets a young man, I think his name was Shen? I should have looked that up. Anyway, she meets this young man, and he can see the symbol, and things literally explode from there. So Lan is a songbird at a tavern. He comes to this tavern following this trace of magic that leads him to her, and things pop off. This is a fantastic story. I will go ahead and say, just to get my one big complaint out of the way, I gave this 4 stars, and solely because the pace on this was just not a pacing that I enjoy. I like a bit of a more slow pace, or peaks and valleys. I like there to be a nice equal balance in my books, and this was not almost non-stop go 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 go. That was my one big complaint about this. It was so go 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 that my anxiety was go 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 about the whole thing. But this is a fantastic story about colonization and the things that we lose, and finding and remembering your family and your culture and seeking those things out, losing history and looking to find it again, even so far as losing language. It's also very, I believe you said wuxia, if I said that right. So Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I think is a good popular example of that. Very over-the-top action sequences, flying through the air. Lots of that. The magic is drawing seals in the air. It's very, very cool. I did really like this. It's one that I probably will pick up my own copy of. Just even though it made me anxious, it's something I could see myself continuing. I really would like to know how the rest of the story goes. The ending is sad, it's tragic, but it sets it up for it's got a very interesting setup for a next novel. I think it's going to be a trilogy. So this is one, if you do see out, I recommend trying if you want something super fast paced, something that takes a really interesting look at those sorts of themes and analyzes that. It is heartbreaking at times. We do see people die. It does not shy away from death and blood and the costs of rebellion and what it can mean to lose that stuff, lose your family, see your family die, that sort of thing. So it's very on the nose with those. It talks about them vividly, but also it's just very fun. It is also very YA. I mean, you have the almost insta-love, you've got the romantic entanglements. All of that stuff is there, but because of how well done everything else is, it was a really good time overall. The next, yes, okay, so the next three things I read were okay. Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse is a novella that she wrote and released last year. This was not my favorite Rebecca Roanhorse. My biggest complaint with this is that it just felt like possibly too little and too big of a scope. The premise is this is a sort of Wild West setting, almost post-apocalyptic, in which heaven and hell have fought, the war is over, hell has fallen, and now humanity has interbred and intermingled with the heavenly and hellish hosts, and now we have like 3 different races. And it takes place in this almost Wild West type of setting. Our main character's sister is accused of murder, and the angelic, I can't remember exactly what they're called, the angelic beings take her to be tried for murder, and she is attempting to solve the murder and get her sister her freedom. This is really short. I do like how Rebecca looked at flawed heroines and the obsession almost with family and stuff, but for me it did also feel very cookie cutter to the genre, to this urban fantasy murder mystery detective genre. It felt very much, the character type felt very much like ones you've read before. I think Kate Daniels, that sort of thing. She had that sort of burn the world for this one thing, but in the end you see maybe it's not worth burning the world for. So I think I give this 2.5, 3 stars. Don't know that I would recommend if you're super into urban fantasy, super flawed heroines of a very formulaic cookie cutter type. This could be for you. It's short regardless, so you're not losing a whole lot reading it. Like I said, not my favorite. The other book that I read that I have a physical copy of is Heaven Official's Blessing by MXTX. I'm not going to talk about this very much. I read this for my Danmei vlog project, which will be going up hopefully in the next week or two. I will say I really loved this. I think in my last update I mentioned reading The Scumvillain Self-Saving System. If I didn't, I did read this and also enjoyed this. It's by the same author. But I'll talk more about these and my live reactions to them in that vlog, which, like I said, should be coming up soon. I had hoped to have it up by now, but with everything going on, my family is still in the post-holiday, we're still in the holiday hell, and with my hyperfixation on renovation, I just haven't had a lot of time to get it up and finished, but it should be up and finished soonish. So. And then the last book that I read was The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future by Christy Noble. I just finished this, I think, yesterday, and this is an ARC. This was from Linktree Press, and this is a collection of short horror stories. These are all what I would call creeping quiet horror. These are the types of horror stories that sneak up on you with their scare. There's no jump scares. There's very little outright monsters. It's all some of these are very thought experiment type of horror, but they're all very quiet horror, and almost all of them have a central aspect of a house. Not a haunted house, but a home, a house, a place to hide, a place to rest, a place to find reprieve. That is all integral to almost all of these stories. Sometimes the house is good and sometimes the house is bad. I loved a lot of these stories. A lot of these were really solid hits for me, and I know that I'll actually be thinking about them for a while. There were, there always is in short story collections, a few that I didn't love as much, but on the whole the stories were fantastic. I think still by far my favorite story in this collection is the first one about the young mother attempting to find a home to have her children and the lengths that she'll go to for that. The horror in that one, I almost didn't expect it because I was lulled into such a state by the writing and the narration that it took me a minute to realize what was wrong with the story. So I super recommend this collection. If you like horror short stories, this is a fantastic one. And and I am looking forward to reading more from this author. Super, super good collection. And that is it for what I have read in the past 2 weeks. So what I am currently reading, I am currently I have started The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien. Why did I say it that way? I was supposed to have read this before now. This is a buddy read with my husband and one of our best friends. I have read this before. This will be probably my 3rd time reading this. I just have I haven't read it within the last like 6 or 7 years. So it's a recent read for me. Just started this. I'm just at chapter 2. So I am in the post Bilbo birthday party area. The other book that I'm working on is Savage City by L. Penelope. So far this is okay. I'm super intrigued by the world. I'm about 60% through. I'm super intrigued by the world, but I can't say that I'm like dying to get back to it. Sitting right now at maybe a 3-star for me, but it is short and it does read quickly. I just haven't had a lot of time to sit down and read chunks of it. So I'll hopefully have that done by next week. Oh, excuse me. Like I said, next week on that one. I think my current Kindle read, I'm getting ready to start Babel. It was on sale today, so I picked up a digital copy. I know I have an ARC and I have a physical copy, but I don't want to read my physical copy because it's the Pretty Fairy Lute edition, so I wanted to get a finished ebook, and it was on sale today. So I finally got that. I'll be starting that soon. And I am also reading The Roamers. I can't remember the author on this one. I will put it up on the screen, and the other ARC I'm almost finished with, I should finish today, is The Frontier, and I think the author on this is something Grace or Grace something. Again, it'll be up here. So both The Roamers and The Frontier are ARCs, and they're both from Linktree. And so far I like both of those. So now there's hopefully some things you will see next week. I should hopefully have my Danmei vlog up the next week or 2. And my February anticipated releases video will also be up very soon as well. Let me know what you guys thought. What have you read? Have you read any of these? Let me know all that down below. I can't wait to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.